We as normal people believe that school shootings are something that only occurs in the past. For some reason, it seems like they will not stop, causing agony and misery to all the families that are involved. When these young criminals are put in front of the judge and put behind bars for life, we can see all kinds of different responses to their crimes. From sorrow and regret, to even others showing an evil smirk on their faces as if they enjoyed their disgusting actions. Here is a list of the top 10 school shooters and their unexpected reactions to being sentenced behind bars for life. Number 1. Caleb Sharp. In September of 2017, Caleb decided to bring with him numerous weapons and belligerently shot at his classmates. It was a day students will never forget, as he killed one student and injured another 3, and brought mental anguish upon people of his high school. One by one, the parents of the students said their last words before Caleb's sentencing, and sadness just consumed the room. The judge then played the CCTV recording of the incident, bringing a disgusting cringe on every courtroom spectator. Worse than anything else, Caleb's parents turned around as they couldn't believe the atrocious actions of their son. Fortunately, at trial, Caleb had a change of mind and admitted not only to the judge but the victim's parents that he made a mistake. He simply said that he is speechless and the only word that he has to say to the court is sorry. He looked directly into the eyes of Amy Strahan, the victim's mother, and stated that if it's possible, would you forgive me? All that I ask for is forgiveness, and that I even ask of from God. His defense attorney pleaded with the judge, asking if his sentence could be limited to only 20 years because of his immaturity and young age. But the judge was indifferent, sentencing him to almost 46 years behind bars. The judge wanted to make an example to all those individuals out there who will ever contemplate on performing such acts, that you will be punished to the fullest extent of the law. The incident at Freeman High School is a constant reminder to society that mental health and gun control precautions need to be taken. As for Amy Strahan, the mother of the teenager, she will forever be devastated with the tragedy that ruined her perfect family. Number 2. Sky Bausch. Sky went to Forest High School and shot a gun through a door, injuring another student. This brought panic upon the high school as it was deemed an unsafe place of education. When Sky was on the court's panel, he admitted that on April of 2018, he orchestrated a grand plan to put a gun in her guitar case and go to his former high school, even taking pills to give him a feeling of numbness. He even stated that the only reason he committed his actions was that because he never got any attention in his life. I quote, "I was debating between a church and school shooting, but deep down I knew that no one would really care about a church shooting, while school shootings received more attention from the media and public," unquote. The district attorney asked Sky why he did it, and he stated that it was an accumulation of constant neglect as a child, repetitive violence, constant mental illness, and just a build-up of unrest in my mental state. Fortunately, Sky showed remorse for his actions and even apologized to the 17-year-old that he had shot in the foot. He even begged the judge if his sentence could be reduced, for he has realized what a mistake he has made, but the judge didn't budge, giving him a sentence of 30 years behind bars, and with good behavior, if he was ever to be let free, it would come with another 30 years of probation. Unfortunately, he will be released when he is 45 plus years of age. The wrongful decisions of Sky show us that when our mental illnesses are not addressed, the repercussions can really have damaging effects on society, as it is crucial to have the right mental illness support networks for all those struggling. Number 3. T.J. Lane. In 2012, no student at Chardon High School would ever think that chaos would ever erupt at their normal and boring school. T.J. Lane unexpectedly murdered 3 students and injured another 3. The event brought panic among the residents of the small town, and the news headlines publicized the story for months. It was lunchtime, and all the students just entered the cafeteria waiting for lunch. They were all enjoying one another for the hour break they were on. Students reported that suddenly a student stood up on the cafeteria tables, and all they could hear were loud gunshots. What students didn't know was that TJ, short for Thomas Michael Lane, was not an ordinary kid. He came from an abusive and troubled home. Those close to him say that not only was there aggressive brutality in his home, but he was always surrounded by criminal activity. TJ, a 17-year-old at the time, was arrested by the police and immediately pleaded guilty to the court. He confessed his actions, but the defense attorneys could not get an explanation out of him as to why he committed such evil that day. The jury questioned his mental instability, but in the end, he was said to be capable of a jury trial. In a courtroom filled with all the devastated victims' families, the judge has no compassion for TJ, giving him 3 life sentences behind bars for his sinister crimes. What happened next just shocked everyone in the courtroom. He slowly took off his light blue dress shirt, and under it, he was wearing another t-shirt with the words "killer" on it. Not only did this behavior show that he was a young boy filled with zero conscience and regret, but I'm sure you now realize what the definition of psychopath is. He then went on to show his middle finger to the families of the victims in the stands. TJ's actions show us that this man was filled with hate, and it's evident that he came from a past with no love in his heart, but rather a desire to destroy our world. All through the long trial, he just kept laughing and had an evil grin on his face, showing that at no time was he regretful for the lives of the innocent students he had taken. To make matters worse, 2 years later, in 2014, he had managed to escape from prison, but within a day, authorities had managed to find him. Number 4. Ethan Crumbley. On November of 2021, a tragedy happened in a Michigan high school that was considered to be the most horrific shooting to ever take place in that state. 15-year-old Ethan decided to bring a semi-automatic gun to Oxford High School. He wrote word for word in his journal that, "I will cause the biggest school shooting in the state of Michigan. I will kill everyone. And I have lost the war with my dark side. My parents have ignored my requests to see a therapist." Sadly, Ethan killed 4 students and injured 8 others in the process. When he was on the stand, he immediately admitted to his grim crimes, stating that the gun he had used was stolen from a safe in his own home, and he snuck that very gun in his backpack before opening fire on his fellow classmates. The case then became even more twisted when the district attorneys decided to charge both Ethan's mother and father, stating that it was their fault for giving their son access to the gun. Although his parents pled not guilty, Ethan's version of the story was different, stating that he asked his father to purchase the gun for him. When the judge began sentencing Ethan, he just stood there frozen, showing no emotion or guilt for his actions that day. Number 5. Brandon Spencer. This 21-year-old got the grim idea to enter USC, one of California's most prestigious private universities, and shoot 4 different students during a Halloween party. he was put behind bars for 40 years. His reaction came with immediate regret. For minutes, Brandon kept hitting his head on the court's table till security had to come and take him away. Brandon might have thought that his actions were in a joking manner, but the judge went full throttle with anger. Brandon cried and cried, saying sorry, but it was no use. His defense attorney asked the judge if he could reconsider for a much lighter sentence. He stated that Brandon was an ambitious child since birth and that he still had many hopes and dreams to attend university. But the opposing attorney wanted to make Brandon suffer as a consequence for his ill actions. The prosecutors painted a picture of Brandon to the jury as the villain. They found evidence of a shooting that happened in 2011 when Brandon was shot in the stomach by a rival gang member. In addition to text messages from his phone to show that he was tied with gang violence and criminal activity. Brandon was left speechless. All he could say was, "I am sorry for what I caused, but trust me, I can't spend the rest of my life in prison." When more evidence came out, it became clear that one of the students Brandon had shot at was a football player at Crenshaw High School. Someone Brandon had gang rivalry with for years, making it evident to the judge and jury that yes, his actions were very well gang-related. The judge, with zero remorse, sentenced him to 40 years behind bars. Life is precious, and this incident teaches us that in a world composed of gang violence, there will never be a happy ending. Number 6. Michael Carneil. In December of 1997, a young boy came up with a frightening scheme to hide a pistol in his backpack, pretending for it to be for an art project. Around about 8 a.m., he went to the restroom and placed earplugs around his ears to avoid the noise, and repeatedly fired his pistol at a group of nearby students. It was a horrifying day that will forever be remembered at Heath High School. 3 innocent girls were killed on the spot, and 5 other students immediately taken to the hospital for the harm that Michael had inflicted that very day. When psychologists began analyzing Michael's past, they realized that all throughout his youth he had suffered with mental illness, depression, and was a constant victim of bullying. Psychologists even concluded that because of his extreme paranoia habits, he was most likely a schizophrenic. The judge concluded that Michael was a threat to society, sentencing him to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 25 to 30 years if he showed adequate behavior. The basis of his parole was with the conditions that it was mandatory for Michael to receive hundreds of hours of treatment for his mental health disorder. Fortunately, Michael began crying at the trial, realizing that he had affected the lives of so many out there. As a breakthrough came within his mind that very day he acted selfish. Recently, a parole hearing came up for Michael, but it was denied by the board as he admitted that every here and then he still hears voices in his head, the same voices he heard that very day telling him to shoot the students. Number 7. Dimitrios Pagourtzis. In May of 2018, Dimitrios killed 8 students and 2 teachers when he took a gun to school and opened fire. It was one of the most heinous crimes ever committed in the state of Texas. Worse than anything else, he injured 13 other people in his act. Dimitrios was just a regular 17-year-old, but that morning around 7 a.m., he randomly entered an art class and repeatedly fired his gun. Luckily, a nearby student who heard the commotion pulled the fire alarm, signaling for all the other students to exit their classes and go outside of the school building. When his fellow classmates and teachers were interviewed, they stated that Dimitrios was a victim of constant bullying by not only students but some teachers as well. But things didn't add up. Dimitrios was an honor student with straight A's and was even part of the school's football team. When police raided his home and dissected his computer, they realized that it had been months he had been masterminding his evil plan. He told police that he had plans to not only kill the students that he didn't like and in no way was going to hurt the cool students that were nice to him. He told the jury that it was his intention to kill himself once he was going to finish killing the other students. But for some reason, that part of his plan failed. When he entered the court, his face was as white as a ghost, with no emotion. Many in the jury said it was as if we were looking at someone who had no heart inside. The judge is still contemplating to give him a life sentence behind bars, with the possibility of a parole hearing after 35+ years. After the horrific incident, students gathered and performed a beautiful act of love, holding candles to remember their beloved and kind classmates that had their lives taken from them that very day. Number 8. Barry Loukaitis. In February of 1996, 14-year-old Barry decided to kill his algebra teacher, as well as 2 other students in his class. Worse than anything else, for hours he held the whole class hostage, bringing terror and fright upon everyone involved. Miraculously, a gym teacher who was well built physically, with muscles and height, came to the rescue and tackled Barry, saving the rest of the students and class from further deaths and harm. Barry's plan was just simply that of a horror movie. He entered the school that morning with hunting clothes on, a huge rifle and 2 smaller guns, as if he was out and about in the forest, waiting to hunt deer. But rather, Barry was viciously waiting to hunt his own classmates. The courts concluded that Barry was going through constant household drama, mainly surrounded by the fact that his parents just got a divorce in the year 1995, almost a year prior to the incident. Supposedly, his mother was outraged when she stumbled upon the fact that her husband was having an affair with another woman, leading for her to file for divorce. It was also concluded that all these factors of instability and anger in his life led to Barry becoming depressed and attaining a form of bipolar disorder. He eventually pleaded to the court for the premise of insanity. Judge Evan, who was in charge of this case, handed Barry a life sentence behind bars, basically making sure that he would never see civilization for as long as he is alive. But then many years later, things took a sharp turn in his case. In 2012, the United States Supreme Court ruled that those individuals under the age of 18 who were convicted on the premises of murder could no longer receive a life sentence. More than 20 years later, the court's rules for a resenting of Barry's case, but this time his emotions were different. Barry came forth apologizing for his actions, stating that on that very day, "I let my emotions get to me. I apologize for I was a weak and stupid kid, forever regretting my actions." Although the laws were changed by the Supreme Court, the judge still gave him 189 years behind bars, thinking of Barry as a threat to society. If you liked this video and want to see more videos just like this, please subscribe and click on the videos right above the screen, as every week we have more and more videos to enlighten your curiosity.